Hello, my name is Marguerite Tabato, and I am the Assistant Director of CVI Assessment and Intervention here at Perkins School for the Blind. In this video, we're going to be talking about compensatory strategies. So what are compensatory skills? Compensatory skills refer to the use of strategies, techniques, and adaptive materials that students with visual impairments use in order to access educational curriculum and as a means of navigating the world as a whole. Essentially, it's using your strengths to overcome areas of challenge. Compensatory strategies are often developed naturally. They don't always need direct instruction in order for them to occur. We use our sensory channels and our cognition to figure out the world around us, and our experiences directly impact how these skills are shaped and used. On this slide, I have three different pictures of a student building a multicolored tower out of blocks. Some compensatory strategies that individuals with CVI might use include context, auditory cues, verbal cues, tactile cues and exploration, or color coding. On this slide, I have a photograph of a student feeling a statue with his hands. There are three overarching goals that we want to accomplish when we're completing a CVI assessment. They are to identify and capitalize on compensatory strategies, to understand how compensatory strategies support recognition, whether that be visual or non-visual, and develop educational programming that allows for skill use and autonomy of choice. Here are some quotes from the research. It is recognized that there is no cure for CVI. The mainstay of management is in identifying strategies which support the child, carer, and teacher in understanding how the child uses their vision and ways in which habilitation or adaptations can be made to enable the child to use their vision effectively and efficiently. And affected young children know their vision to be normal, yet the educational, developmental, and emotional, personal, and social impact of living with unreliable perception is commonly profound. It's important that we first consider memory and the value of prediction. Memory and prediction skills are at the core of all learning. Our memory of past experiences impacts how we respond, understand, and react. And we use these skills to problem solve and increase efficiency. We use all the senses available to us, and it's no different for individuals with CVI. There is tremendous value in identifying compensatory strategies and helping students to use them efficiently. A quote from David Eagleman states, "It turns out that it doesn't matter how the information gets to the brain as long as it gets there." On this slide, I have a photograph of a young boy climbing up a gym mat towards an adult. So why should we assess compensatory strategies? For one, to identify the strengths of the individual and use them to build access to learning and independence. To understand the availability and functionality of the senses and additional skills. And to create accessible learning media with a clear understanding of compensatory strategies versus visual recognition. Now we're going to talk a bit about some possible compensatory strategies that you might see with children with CVI. The first one being color supports and the use of color coding. Color coding refers to reliance on color to alert to and recognize visual stimuli. And this may include objects, pictures, people, and other aspects of the environment. Color coding can be used as an organizational support, and color coding is often supported by context. We remember the color of items, where it should be located, and when we can expect to see it. Here's an example as to why the where and when matters when it comes to color coding. I have two photographs on this slide. On the left, there's a picture of a sink with a few dish towels hanging over the side. 3 are red and 1 is white. On the right side of the screen, I have a closet full of clothes with a red shirt being selected. We expect to see the red dish towel in the kitchen or during mealtime prep. We would expect to see our red shirt in the closet or during a changing routine. These context clues help us alert to and understand what those items are. Color coding would be less of a support or a reduced support if all of these items were combined together in a laundry basket. In that case, color might alert us to the location of those objects, but we might rely on other compensatory strategies, such as touch, in order to really find out what object we are looking at. Here are some examples of how color coding or color as a support would be used by an individual with CVI as a compensatory strategy. They might use color to locate an icon on an AAC device, use color to organize their belongings, confuse objects of similar colors. They might memorize the color of people's shirts in order to aid in recognition, or they might rely on the identification of hair color for recognition. Now let's talk about the use of touch. Using touch can help support awareness and attention to objects or people, provide spatial orientation information and supports, provide information on structure and shape, support part-to-whole relationships, and a better understanding of object knowledge and object function. On this slide, I have a picture of a young boy mouthing the side of a pail. When it comes to using touch, individuals with CVI may use touch to locate an object, use touch to recognize objects or alternative media. They might tactily explore objects with or without the use of vision. They may use touch to access tactile graphics or to read Braille. They may use touch cues as a means of anticipating events. They may switch to tactile exploration when visually fatigued, or they might use touch as their primary means of acquiring information. On this slide, I have a photograph of a little girl smiling and hugging a toy cat. Now we're going to talk about using hearing. Individuals with CVI may rely on sound cues to anticipate events. They may use sound to alert to or recognize an object or a toy. They may rely on voices for recognition or benefit from verbal greetings. They may benefit from explicit explanations around novel sounds. They might not realize someone is in the room until they speak. They may use their hearing as their primary means of acquiring information, or they may default to using their hearing when visually fatigued. On this slide, I have a photograph of a young girl smiling and playing with her guitar. Here's an example. On this slide, I have a photograph of an AAC device. This student with CVI uses a high-tech AAC device with a 32 grid with very high efficiency. Despite some of the visual challenges that this device poses, the student uses a wide range of compensatory strategies in order to communicate effectively and use the device. These compensatory strategies include remembering the location of the icon, thumb dragging across the screen to support navigation, icon color, as well as auditory output. Here's another example of color as a support. On this slide, I have a photograph of a student facing shelves with a variety of objects on them. When asked to find 2 cups, this student had difficulty finding the cup that was only visible from the bottom and presented within clutter. However, when she was told that the cup was pink, the student was immediately able to retrieve the requested object. And now for the voices of CVI. From a young adult with CVI, I find routes and rooms in the school building by color. From a parent of a child with CVI, my son knows who people are by looking at their shoes. Here's a quote from Nye, an adult with CVI, around the importance of autonomy of choice. What CVI folks need are options and the freedom to choose. What we need is respect as the experts of our own brains. This is the only principle that works in every situation. Here is some current research and literature as it relates to compensatory skill use. At Perkins, we believe that every child with CVI is teachable, and every child has a right to a meaningful and accessible education.